Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Welcome back to anyone who sat patiently through the panel conducting its training. The next formal item is the pension fund administration update. We've also got the first quarter and annual figures report in Appendix 1. Jenny, sorry to have kept you waiting much longer than usual.
No, it's all very interesting.
Good. So the report. So anything you want to say about the report, the update,
no,
and the report?
Yes, just to take any questions anyone might have. The administration details have been supplied. There are two things to note: that Arxone Academy will become a scheduled body from the 1st of September, and that Woodend Infants are amalgamating Woodend Junior. Apart from that, yeah, we're very busy.
Indeed, and I think the panel would want us to thank you and the team for all the fantastic work you've done in incredibly difficult circumstances over the last 18 months in particular. Any questions from the panel to Jenny about the report? I don't see any. So the panel is asked to note those points. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Moving on, the next item is the pension fund performance monitoring update for the quarter ending 31st of March 2021. Sorry,
Before we
Yvonne?
do that, normally somewhere at the beginning, Bridget reports back from the board, but none of the board managed to make the training because I think they all got lost. But she usually gives a verbal update from the board.
Yep.
At the beginning.
That's fine. Bridget, do you want to give an update from the board?
Okay.
I don't know whether they failed to join us across cyberspace or whatever happened, but yes, Bridget.
Okay. I guess the board just had a look at the normal paperwork that we provided. They also looked at the pension fund annual report, had some discussions around the chair's statement, and had various opinions as to who should be writing the chair's statement. I guess that's the only thing that they sort of that came back from the pension board, apart from saying that it would be nice to have some joint training along with the pension committee, which we're going to start to have now.
Well, in fact, we just tried to have.
Yes.
Something went wrong. Okay, moving on to the performance monitoring update. Bridget, will you introduce?
Okay, this is the standard for the new members. This is the standard performance monitoring update report, which you will get, which basically updates on what's happened to the fund, how the fund has moved up, the performance of the fund, and then updates on a number of issues to do with the LGPS, the local government pension schemes. We update on regulation. Unless maybe you have any questions that you might want to ask, and then I can home in on them.
Okay. So this month, sort of chicken and egg, because we are a virtual meeting, we wouldn't be able to take certain kinds of decision, but this month we're only being asked to note the recommendations in front of us, which is why we were able to hold this entire session in virtual form. So any questions to Bridget about the report? Paul?
Yeah, I mean, the report does say that, you know, in terms of liabilities and investments, we've got a good return, and it's doing well, which is great to have that recorded. I just wonder about our exposure to property, because property is quite a heavy, from what I can see, a heavy bias in our investment share. And obviously we're in a situation that post-COVID, post any economic situation, and how we go forward in property, because I don't know how that property investment is with commercial or other areas. How is that exposure going to present to the future? I mean, and I realise I'm asking a question which is a changing economic and dynamic situation. So I'm just wondering how that might portray, follow through in the future.
Okay, I could answer that. So we've got a 10% allocation to property, which is kind of pretty normal. Some other funds have more than that. So we've got 10% allocation. At the moment, we're underweight. I think we've got about 8% at the moment. It might be just over 8%. And there was a decision taken by the this committee about 2 meetings ago, right in the middle of the pandemic, not to top up, because what you would normally do is you would look at your 3 managers, look at where they are and decide to top up your allocation to property. We are in pooled funds. It's direct, but it's still pooled. The reason why it's pooled is because it's the mechanism they use for pooling is that you buy units in that fund. So we haven't topped up our allocation because of the decision of this committee. But there is a big review that's pending, because we're in a situation where there's going to be seismic change in the way we live, work and play. So the demand for office might change considerably. Also, retail is coming under considerable pressure. And so the decision has been made to carry out a big review of our property. 2 aspects to that. One is looking at our existing managers, looking at what they have and whether that's fit for going forward into the future, but also looking at what other type of property exposures we might want to welcome into the portfolio. For example, residential. There's a range of types of residential investments, whether it's affordable, whether it's private rented sector, and so on and so forth. So the decision was not to make that review right in the middle of the pandemic when things are not as visible as you want them to be. So possibly Q4 of this year, or the next, the December meeting, you would probably have a report on that review, the property review. So in the meantime, we had a decision at about 2 meetings ago where there was some sort of proxy investments agreed. So we had quite a lot of cash in the portfolio not earning a return because there were all these decisions that needed to be taken and all of these movements, which is why there's some proxy investments. So some of those monies have been deployed to fixed income and equity. And so that's where we are as far as property, but there is a review pending. And yes, what will come out of that may well be, reduce our exposure to what we've got now, but it may be that those managers are actually on a journey where they're transitioning out of maybe some retail and maybe doing some conversion. So it's that's where we are.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess the danger, as in any investment, is if everybody rushed for the exit at the same time, we'd get even less back than it's worth at the moment. And then, of course, if it rebounded, we'd be cursing. But I mean, I think it's the nature of the game we're in, I think, isn't it, to a large degree. Any other questions on the performance monitoring reports?
Chair, can I just say,
Yes,
direct people to the table under 3.1. It's got our asset allocation and where we hope to be. So for Paul or any new members, you can see where we are and what we'd hope to do, and that helps a bit.
That's right, and we're in the process of migrating from position to other, because it's not possible always to overnight change your allocation position. You have to do it when the opportunities arise to make the change. That's helpful, Yvonne. Thank you. And that you'll find that table will be a hardy perennial in the reports that you read as the months and years go by. Okay.
The other thing is, just to expand a bit more, property is an illiquid asset class. So to get into the into property investment, normally you find that you're on a queue because obviously they don't buy properties overnight and they have a queue of investors waiting. It takes time to call you. And then the round trip cost of getting in and out of property can be as much as 3-4%. So it's quite expensive to go in and out of. So it's not something you want to be sort of entering and exiting very quickly, regularly.
Thank you very much. Okay, so does the committee note the recommendations in paragraph 1?
Noted.
Yes.
Noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to, I think it's our last substantive item, the pension fund annual report audit arrangements. We're asked to note the draft report and the requirement to delegate authority to the Chief Finance Officer to finalise that report because of the time frame for publication on the 1st of December. Anything to, you've made brief reference, Bridget, to the report. Anything further to say about it?
No, nothing further to say about the report, except this is a very, very early draft report. The audited account, the accounts are still actually being audited at the moment. So there may be changes to the report. But, you know, if you've got any questions, comments, anything about the spelling of your name.
I spent ages when I first got on really key issues like the spelling of my name, but I got over it. Yes. I got over it, I think. Yes, so the drafts do come back, so there'll be a further draft at the September meeting. I don't doubt to look at. I've got Paul and Sukminder and Yvonne. Paul?
Yes, on my electronic copy, I'm trying to find the relevant section. I can't find it, but there's a list of, if I'm using the right focus, declared equities. Now, just for my own information as a new member, because Shell and BP used to be on that list and they're no longer there. So I was just wanting to understand what had happened with Shell and BP, just so I understand the background and the history, just very potted history.
I will tell you, we might still have an exposure to Shell and BP, so I won't say they've completely disappeared. So we were invested in Lazard. So Lazard was the UK equity, and we had what you called a segregated mandate with Lazard. They were a manager that invested directly for us. We were the beneficial owners of that investment, and so all of that will be listed. Well, now we've moved out of Lazard and we've moved to pooled funds.
Right. Okay.
Global, so it wouldn't have as much, probably not have as much exposure to BP, because BP, I think, is largely UK listed. Is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes. So you'll find that maybe we'll have a less exposure to fossil fuels again, because we've also moved into low carb investments. So to get any our exposure there, you'd have to drill a little bit further into those. So I can't say that we'll completely not have them, but we'll have a lot less.
Fine. Thank you. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Thanks very much, Sukminder.
Sorry, it takes time to get off of mute. I know that Bridget did some feedback from the board. I'm interested in terms of their comments in terms of the report. And also, I haven't gotten over the issue about the spelling of surnames, because my surname is just there without an initial. So I wonder if that can be corrected, please.
We'll have a look at that and correct that. Oh, so you wanted a little bit more about the feedback from the
please.
board? Yeah, I think they had a discussion about the chair's statement and as to who should be writing the chair's statement. And I think they had some difference of opinion. I think one person said it should be the exiting chair, and two others said possibly not. So they just said to feed that back.
Okay. Thank you. Yvonne?
Yes, I'd like to answer Paul's question. Again, I'm referring to him to an email I sent out in, I think, May to all our members saying that we now only have direct access to Shell, etc., through our bond, and our exposure's gone down by quite a lot. We've only got the exposure about 1.9 now. But this report we're talking about is last year. So it's 2020 to 2021. So it's about what we owned last year. And we've put into place the changes that Bridget talked about, because we've been talking about coming out of Lazards for quite a while. So we did that last November. So we've changed quite a bit. So, but it's the previous from 2020 to 2021. And as this is just a draft and we're not making any decisions, I would like to suggest to the new chair, if he doesn't mind, and to Bridget, that we have myself introducing last year's report and Steve either in front of that or whatever, saying as new chair what he hopes to do in this year as a possible compromise, because it was last year's accounts. That's just a suggestion.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I've had to look. I mean, this point's been made to me, and I've gone to the trouble of going back to look at what's happened previously. And for example, when you took over, Yvonne, you wrote the introduction the year, that immediately upon you taking over, and thanked the previous chair for their contribution. So I think all that we're doing in this is consistent. There are obviously organisations where things work towards an annual meeting, and a board or whatever reports to an annual meeting, and it's perfectly proper that whoever is the chair or the responsible person is the name up to that annual meeting. But obviously we don't operate to that time frame here. So by the time the members receive the report, my incumbency as chair will be sort of 6 or 8 months. Will be 6-7 months in. So I think my current view, and I'm happy to reflect on this, but my current view would be consistent with what's been done in the past. The draft appears to be correct, but say I'm happy to reflect and look at it further. But it seems to me to be in order.
Can I just say very quickly, the previous chair lost his seat in the election. So it's slightly different. He was no longer a member. But
I mean, we can agree to differ potentially, but let's I'll reflect further. But I think it's worth saying my view is that the report should be as it is, but I'll reflect. Okay. So with that, with those discussion points, are the recommendations in paragraph 1 agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Which I think takes us to the date of next meeting, which, as Bridget has reminded us, is as soon as the 2nd of September, which will roll round exceedingly quickly. So I look forward to seeing you all then. And thank you very much for this evening. Thank you particularly again to Alessandra and Philip for the excellent training event. And the rest of you, everybody, have a very good rest of the evening.
Thank you. Good night.